Hello and welcome to the Keto Man's Club podcast.
We're glad you're here, where each week we talk about men's health and lifestyle.
We do so with the foundation of the ketogenic diet and lifestyle.
If you don't know what keto is, stick around and you'll find out.
The podcast will bring you real, honest fun.
Each week we strive to uncover the tips and tricks that you can use in your everyday life to maximize your overall health.
Find the clearest path to becoming the best version of yourself that you were meant to be.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Keto Man's Club podcast. My name is Chris and I'm here with the usual company, Alberto and Jim. How's it going, Jim?
Life is good, sir. We've moved into the middle of the year, which kind of feels odd to say after all the delays and craziness of COVID and everything. But July has kicked off well, and glad to be here tonight.
Absolutely. Berto, what's new?
Oh man, that Saharan dust was real this year.
Yes, it was.
It was particularly worse than I remembered it from years past. But yeah, man, it was getting. I had to go to the hill country, and in the hill country, visibility was insanely low. I mean, I was only working out there for a few hours, but by the time I left, I felt like my throat was closing up.
Yeah.
I was like, this was serious.
Yeah, I had a day where I'm talking to customers for 10 hours that day, and my voice was not happy. My throat, it was not happy at all. So, yeah, it's been a good week. It's for those listening, if you're curious about it, we're recording this July 1st. Our latest challenge of tracking launched today, and the store for our next series of T-shirts and the original T-shirt and our stickers went up this evening, i.e., in about an hour and a half after we get done recording this. It goes live in the group and everything. So the pre-orders will go until right about when this is going to air. So please get on it. I will probably actually create a little promo and throw it in for the weeks that are going to air in the next couple weeks, because we want to get as many of these orders in as quickly as possible. But that's exciting times. So if you haven't already placed your order, now is the time, because time will be running out by the time this airs. So that being said, let's any other business to attend to, Jim?
We talked about it last week that we were going to be renaming our beginners group.
That's right. So
we made it official July 1st. So if you go to look for TKMC Beginners, it is, you may have a link. Some people that have requested to join, we've sent links through private message on Facebook and whatnot. The link still works, but the name of the group has changed. We are now calling it the Keto 101 Man's Club. We've said it here on the podcast many times. We've talked about it in our groups that the Keto Man's Club is kind of a higher level. You've been doing it for a while. You're familiar with macros and all these different things. So you've got the general idea of things, whereas the Beginners Club that started in early 2020 was truly for guys looking for that, how does this work, and basic questions and things like that. We found that we actually hit 500 plus members today, July 1st, which is a very nice milestone to have. But we found that over the last couple of months that a lot of people weren't finding us because keto was not in the name of the group. So it really was kind of defeating a little bit to have all the great stuff that we provide, but you couldn't find it because it didn't say anything about keto. Mm-hmm. And so we plugged in a 101 in the middle, and we'll be doing some marketing updates, tweaks on things, on images and so on. So bottom line, if you are new to keto, if you are finding us on the podcast for the first time here, you can still probably look for TKMC Beginners, but just know that it is actually now, effective July 1st, the Keto 101 Man's Club. So check that out and keep asking to join. Very simple to request and get in and everything, and rock and roll from there.
Yep. Only one true requirement: be a man.
Well, if you're going to rub some dirt in it and not cry, then that's what was now.
Yeah.
We're not. Yeah. So, but yeah, we're excited. 500 plus members in 6-ish months' time is pretty remarkable, and so very glad to see all the successes there.
Yeah, I'll probably end up just referring to it as the Keto 101. Or something like that whenever, my shorthand for all of that. But it's our 101. So we've got to have the Man's Club in there somewhere too. So I think that's a good way to go for sure. So the link to that, and this is a great time to talk about our website, theketomansclub.com. You can find the links to the main group, to the Keto 101 Man's Club. You can get our podcast website is there. Links to Spotify and iTunes, or I'm sorry, Apple Podcasts. I should really have that correct since I work for a certain
You're not
fruit
getting
named
a paycheck.
Yeah. So, Apple Podcasts, and then we've got the fan page that we post to, and all of that. We just added a link to the KetoCon 2020 virtual ticket. And the reason that that's extra important for us is our very own Alberto has his presentation on that. We've talked about it a little bit in previous episodes. Let's real quickly recap what that was like and what people should expect from the virtual ticket from yourself and from everybody else.
Obviously, nothing this year is really going as planned. So along with everything else, KetoCon obviously got canceled with a bunch of other things. So I got offered, and everybody pretty much got offered the opportunity to record a solo presentation or a little talk, so they can put them all together and offer them virtually to all the people that bought tickets, and then you can buy tickets specifically for this. So I was supposed to be on the athletic panel, there was, I think, 5-6 of us up there. And so it was kind of like I was going to go up there, but it's a panel. So it's, I would have maybe gotten 30 to 45 seconds of words in. And since obviously that didn't happen, I got offered an opportunity just to record my own. So I did. And then I kind of decided instead of just talking about athletic stuff, why not talk about how I got here and what I went through to get here. So it was kind of a continuation of my story, some newer stuff in there of using keto and carnivore to reverse all my IBD symptoms, specifically ulcerative colitis. I haven't watched it yet, so I honestly don't even remember what I talked about. But from what I'm told, it's pretty good. So it'll be interesting. My family wants to watch it. My daughters want to watch it, so obviously we're going to watch it. It's just one of those things. When it's you, it's hard. It's less appealing.
It's very hard to edit our podcast on a week-to-week basis.
Like the 49 other presentations I watched, no problem.
Yeah. And there's everybody has a presentation on there for the most part. So if you're a fan of someone, or if you have been interested to hear more from a certain someone, whoever that might be, definitely check it out. Because that's definitely a good way to go. So let's go into our picks of the week, and then we'll go from there into other businesses. Apparently, Alberto and our guests have devised some type of surprise that.
Well, no one's going to be surprised.
Okay.
Because everybody's seen it, but it'll make more sense in a minute.
Okay. Well, Jim, let's start with you and your pick.
My shout out this week is to Mr. Sam Walters. Sam's got a great side-by-side photo in the Keto Man's Club. His goal is to have visible abs before he turns 50. Says he's got about a year and a half before that, so he's around 48 or so. He is coming up on his 1-year keto anniversary on July 4th. He didn't put the numbers into the write-up, but he did say that he's been following the Keto Gains macros for about a year. He's been kind of quote unquote hit and miss with his fitness routines, but does a lot of barbell or kettlebells, novice barbell, and weighted rucking. So there's that term again that we've heard many times, and just a remarkable transformation for sure. So kudos to this young man, Sam Walters, who, let me click, he is from, oh my gosh, where would he be from, Jim? What state could he possibly be from?
Texas.
Okay, so new goal for Jim is to never have another shout out from Texas. We got 49 other states to represent. We got Puerto Rico, we've got Mexico, we've got DC, we've got everywhere else in the world. I'm out of Texas love. I'm done. No, I'm just kidding. All good to Sam. Congratulations.
Yep. I'm going to go, and then I'll hand it over to Alberto. I am shouting out one of our quite a few contributions to the Transformation Tuesday. Jamie Mullen, and I love he started out with hashtag never again, and that's just that's such an important thought process that never again is he going to get back to where he was. He's going into year 3 of keto, living his best life in his 50s, and encourages folks to keep winning. He has lost 200 pounds roughly, from 420 to roughly around 220 currently.
Wow.
And he's gone from a size 60 pants to 36 and a 5 to 6X shirt to an extra large. I would say he's transformed himself quite a bit. Yeah, absolutely. So cool stuff from there. And definitely, and he's only one. Like, there's tons of these guys that are going in here and doing crazy, amazing stuff with their health, which is what I like to, these numbers, yes, it's losing weight, but it's not about the weight that's lost. It is absolutely about the health that they're regaining as they do it. Okay, Alberto, it's your turn.
Yep, I went very, very simple and straight to the point. I'm 72% caveman, apparently. So that's a 23andMe joke. But anyways, Ben Phelps smoked his first brisket. And the first ones, you always assume they're going to come out good. And I should just let them know now, you might get to your 100th brisket, and you're going to know it's going to come out better, but in your mind, you're going to be like, it's not good enough. That just doesn't seem to change. Yeah. But congratulations on your first brisket. A good friend of ours, we probably got to have him back on. I'm sure we got a lot more to talk about. But yeah, good job, man. That brisket looked good.
Absolutely.
And please note that I did not encourage brisket in a microwave in this episode.
there was a very visible smoke ring, so we cleared that.
Yeah.
Okay. Good job.
Yeah. No microwaving was ensued. That's awesome. Okay. Well, Alberto, I know Ben by reputation through some interaction online, but I'm going to let you go ahead and lead out with him and go from there.
First of all, how do you say your last name, Ben?
Wagenmaker. It is a Dutch name of Dutch origin, although my family is from the U.S. I personally am born and raised in the U.S., having been in Canada. My wife imported me into Canada 18 years ago. And so you guys don't have to feel bad about shouting out to Texas because y'all are going international tonight. I'm in Quebec. So bonjour to everybody who...
Oh, somebody just added class to the podcast.
Yeah. Nice. And I'm not even wearing a shirt. Now I feel inappropriate. So anyways, Ben I know from many of Facebook groups, and mostly just online. So I'm really excited. I've never actually talked to him. I'm really excited about this. But we were messaging each other back and forth for about the last few days and came up with an idea.
Alberto and we have seen this go through, and I'm sure everyone in the keto, anyone who's been in a Facebook group of any kind has seen this go through. It says, gonna be hot this weekend, and this is true. Cool off with a Beef Fizz. Ooh. So refreshing. The recipe is for 2 cans of condensed beef broth, 1 cup of chilled ginger ale, 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. Combine ingredients, pour over ice in glasses. Enjoy. Refreshing. So everybody has been either yucking or being intrigued by this. I'm in the camp that's intrigued. So what I did is I spoke to Alberto. We said, let's do this. Let's do this live. We're going to try this. So he and I conspired together, and this is the conspiracy theory of the week. We conspired together to get some beef broth and reduce it because the recipe calls for condensed beef broth, means you have to reduce it by 50% over medium heat. So I condensed it to get that rich beef, refreshing flavor. And in order to respect the ratios, I reduced 24 ounces of broth into 12 ounces. And for the sake of the experiment, I have 1 portion with ginger ale, 1 portion with lemon lime seltzer water, the bubbly kind, the bubbly brand. And so if someone doesn't care for ginger, in my mind, beef and ginger go together. It's an Asian flavor combination. So ginger seems logical to me, but some people might not like ginger. So I'm going to try it with just a lemon lime seltzer water too. So Alberto has his version. He made his, put lemon juice in it. He has salt and hot sauce in case it tastes terrible. So Alberto, do you have any comments before we go down the hatch?
No, I mean, this legitimately looks terrible, but the ingredients, I mean, I would taste them all individually without a problem. So I don't imagine it can't be worse than the combined sum.
Yeah. Honestly, this looks like a flat Coca-Cola.
Yeah, that's a pretty good description. But yeah, I'm
All
ready,
right.
man. We're gonna
So
take a
anyway,
big
we're going to
swig.
do this live. World premiere. We're going to do this live on the Keto Man's Club Beef Fizz tasting test. Let's do this. 1, 2, 3.
That's actually not bad.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I
it
think I
tastes
prefer it
exactly
with
what
the
you would.
ginger.
Yeah, definitely with the ginger. I mean, I didn't try the other ones, but ginger for sure.
Yeah.
It tastes exactly like you would expect it to.
Yep.
But I mean, I wouldn't.
It
put
tastes
it
like
at
an
the
Asian
top
sauce.
Of my beverage. Yeah, exactly. It definitely would not be on the top of my beverage list, but
Yeah.
it's definitely not at the bottom either. It almost has like a Bloody Mary vibe to it. It's really weird.
Yeah. It's like it's like I'm drinking reduced soy sauce, like diluted soy sauce.
I hope we're doing a good job of selling this.
Yeah, I mean, if you like soy sauce, hey, this is great, refreshing, cold
On ice.
soy sauce.
I mean, I'm gonna
Yeah,
finish
on
it,
ice.
so if that's an indication of what this tastes like.
Yeah. So hey, anyway, now everybody knows. And actually, I want to go off into a tangent if you don't mind. Alberto and I discussed this because when I was doing my research for this little experiment, I decided to figure out what the difference is between all these broth and stock and consomme, because someone brought this up in a conversation. What if there's a bunch of congealed fat chunks in my icy refreshed beverage? Wouldn't that be gross? And the answer is, of course, yes, that'd be gross. You don't want to crunch on something that's not an ice cube when you drink. So that's why they call for broth, because broth and stock, I actually didn't know this. I just learned this week, and I've used these almost interchangeably, and some people do. Broth actually is lower fat, so you're less likely to get congealed fat chunks. And the reason that is because beef broth is made with meat and veggies and no bones. So stock actually is bone broth. And if you hear the word stock and you hear bone broth, those can be used synonymously because it's the same thing. So if you use stock to make this, you're going to probably get chunks of congealed fat in your beverage, which is less desirable. So for the purpose of this beverage, broth is a better deal. Or consomme. Consomme, I actually did a little bit of research on that as well, which would work. It's actually clarified broth or stock. And what they do is they will take broth or stock and they'll add egg whites to it and heat it. And what happens is the egg whites actually take all the sediment and anything that's like a loose, anything solid, and you remove the egg white foam, if you will, and basically it becomes a clarified beef broth. And so consomme would work for this as well. So there you go. That's the scientific experiment, the mad science of the week.
Very cool. Very cool.
Jim, I got one over here for you if you want it.
I was kind of waiting for a gag reflex or something to kick in from you guys whenever, because I didn't hear the chugging noise of you drinking it, and and so I'm good at the moment. Thank you.
Well, I'm not dumb enough to slam it. It was a good sized swig. It's all right. Well, in that case, I'll just save yours for later.
Yeah, please just put it in the freezer. I'll be down to Texas at some point. Yeah, we'll cheers that.
And I'm sure it would congeal perfectly after being frozen and then thawed.
I've actually had a flashback to the Friends episode where they try to make Joey or Ross drink the fat. And I don't know if any of you guys have ever seen that episode. I don't even know what the terms were or whatever, but yeah. So that's where my gag reflex was kicking in my mind.
Yeah.
Chris, you want Jim's?
No, I'm good.
Yeah, come on, Chris.
Hard
chug,
pass.
chug.
The sad
Leaves
part
an
is that I
interesting,
could actually be over there in 20 minutes, but I'm not gonna.
It has an interesting mouthfeel.
I'm sure. I'm sure. I was.
Wow, that's the quote of the show right there.
We were talking in a group chat that earlier about weird things and cow brain, I think, is part of what came up initially. But at one point in time when I was in Iceland, I actually had the opportunity to try sheep's head, which is an Icelandic delicacy, and I was like, nope, biggity, big nope. So yeah, that I don't deal with that very well. I eat plenty of
What
weird
has
stuff.
happened to this podcast episode? Where are we going?
Yeah, I don't know. That's just, yeah. Anyway, we have a guest this week. We've already entertained
I am so
us.
confused
Yeah.
all of a sudden. How did we've been drinking the fat and now we're in Iceland and what? What's keto, huh?
We're off the normal reservoir. Our guest could answer. Our guest could answer the question, what is keto, very well. He's actually one of the admins and experts in the Keto Evangelist group of Facebook groups. And Ben, do you also contribute to the blog at all? I don't know if you do.
Oh, I did a couple years ago,
Okay.
but I haven't done so in a couple years.
Yeah.
But just before we get into that, though, I have to comment this. I mean, my sense of dad joke justice has to comment on this. But going back to your sheep's head thing,
yeah,
I think I have to. This must be said, but you have to have an open mind to eat an open mind.
Oh my God. Okay, that whole class comment that I said at the beginning of the show is gone. We have hit DEFCON 5.
Oh my!
I vote for more live food tastings because this way we fill up like 45 minutes of nonsense.
Oh my goodness!
Oh my goodness!
Yes.
For the introduction, thank you. I'm not sure if you had any general questions, but I actually started keto in early 2016 and basically stumbled onto the original ketogenic success group in mid 2016. So it's been a while. I've actually started keto, full keto around that time. And just to give a brief history of my story for people who don't know me, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And one of the things I like to say on my personal blog and elsewhere is that I'm an asymptomatic diabetic. And that's a cool thing because most diabetics worry about the symptoms. And the symptoms, as a lot of people know, are, neuropathy and losing your kidneys, losing your vision. And I'm asymptomatic. I have, what they call an A1C of lower than 5.7, which is the threshold for pre-diabetes. And I've been lower than that since 2016. So thanks to keto and intermittent fasting, I've maintained a status of being an asymptomatic diabetic. Some people will also say it's in reverse, which I will also use. I don't use the word cured because being in reverse basically implies that your car is in reverse, and that's a conditional state. Whereas if you put it back in drive, the condition is gone and, it's no longer in reverse, it's in drive. So right now, my diabetes is in reverse in the sense that if I start eating a regular standard American diet, it would no longer be in reverse. It would shift back to drive and I'd have to worry about symptoms and medication and all that other stuff again. And I don't want to have to worry about symptoms or medication. So I've been med-free, symptom-free since 2016. Thank you, keto. That's a huge thing. But also, I used to suffer from gout. I took gout medication every day for several years. I don't take meds for that anymore. I don't have to. I had acid reflux for several years. I took Zantac every night in order to go to sleep. Otherwise, I couldn't sleep well. I once had an ulcer. Several things were just really bad with my health. And by the time I was diagnosed with high cholesterol and type 2 diabetes and hypertension, I was only 41. And I had the health of someone probably 60 years older than that. And I quietly worried, I wondered if I would even see 50. I didn't know if I would live to 50 in the state that I was in because I felt it. It felt horrible. And then, of course, once I got diagnosed, that was the kick in the pants I needed to basically do research and figure out, okay, how am I going to manage this? Because my doctor told me, and, with respect to doctors, sometimes you need a second opinion, but my doctor told me straight, he looked at me and he said, with your cholesterol this high, you can eat salad the rest of your life and it's not going to help. You need medication. And I can hear people just everywhere just saying, no, that was my inner voice said, no, it's not true. So I went to the web and I wanted to do research with, a lot of different sources. I went Dr. Fung, among others, Sarah Hallberg, among others, Diet Doctor, among others. And I discovered that lots of people with diabetes are successfully treated with low carb and fasting. So that's what I did. Long story short, that's what I did. And so fast forward to 2016, I started admitting for Keto Evangelist. I lost weight. I feel great. I'm currently 45. I feel better than I did in my 30s. I feel like I did in my mid-20s. I have about the same health as I did in my mid-20s. I no longer fear for my future. I can definitely see myself living way past 50. I can see myself running 5K, races into my 80s and 90s, and there's nothing wrong with living to a ripe old age as long as you're healthy. And so that's my goal, and to help others do the same. And so, I take a lot of inspiration from somebody who's in the type 1 diabetes area, and I read her blog, and this inspired me so much, and I relate to this so much. It's not about being better than someone or thinking you're better than others or healthier than others or luckier than others or being in competition with others. It's just genuinely wanting to help others avoid struggling. And so I think we're all in the same boat with that. So that's where I'm at. So thanks for hearing me out. If you have anything to add, any questions, comments?
So many questions.
Yeah.
Jim?
So you've spoken about the diabetes and whatnot. One thing I always like to ask our guest is, tell us a little bit about your family life, meaning not so much where you're at today, but growing up, parents, siblings, and whatnot. Are you unique in what you've gone through? Did you have a family history of any medical issues and whatnot? Kind of talk about that, if you would.
Okay. Well, as far as wow, that's kind of a huge question because my family situation, and of course everyone has a unique story. I'm one of 5 children, 2 brothers, 2 sisters. One of my sisters passed away at the age of 29 several years ago. It was a tragedy. So I currently have 2 brothers and 1 sister that's still alive. I didn't have any diagnosed health issues back then. However, I will say this, and with respect to people who have these diagnoses, I mean no disrespect to them, but had I been a child today, I am certain I would have been tested positive for ADD, not ADHD, but ADD, because I have a devil of an issue staying focused. And this is true every day in several situations. I would almost certainly have been diagnosed on the very mild spectrum of autism. I had issues with, there are so many issues that I could go through just to give. I had issues where I didn't like to wear shirts with buttons because in my mind they smelled funny. It was a sensory thing. It was really odd. I can't explain it other than, it was a sensory issue that was unexplained to the general population. And like most introverts, most of my universe was inside of my head, and I couldn't express it to people outside of. And the very few people that I trusted with, being able to speak to, maybe they understood maybe 1% of what I actually said, put into words. And so my childhood was very academic. I was very academically gifted and I was musically talented, but socially I didn't know how to speak to people. I didn't know how to express myself. So that was a huge thing. And as far as that caused a lot of frustration, that caused me to look to food, among other things, for comfort. I had a huge sweet tooth. And, I often would eat my emotions. I remember eating a whole entire pie at the age of 12 in one sitting. And that was not unusual for me to do. And I was the only child of my siblings who had weight issues. It wasn't severe. I wasn't obese, but I was certainly overweight. I remember at the age of 9, they measured our waist circumferences for gym uniforms, for gym shorts, and I had a 33-inch waist circumference at the age of 9. I remember having to wear husky-sized pants, and that being a little bit of an embarrassment, having to wear husky-sized pants back in the day. So that definitely affected me through my earliest days. And so I had a little bit of a yo-yo weight issue that chased me and haunted me really my entire life into my adulthood, because stuff like that never really goes away. It stays with you your entire life, and it rides into your adulthood, and it definitely affected my adulthood. I yo-yo dieted several times, and I went all the way up to, I think, 273. And I know some of you people went way above 273. To me, that was enough. That was my cutoff. I couldn't, I was wearing 3X, and to me, that was way too much. And of course, with my health issues, that was the main thing.
How tall are you, Ben?
I'm 6'2". That helps put things in perspective as well. So of course, there's a huge difference between being 273 pounds at 6'2" versus 5'4". So
right,
of course, or being 6'10". So being 6'2", I was actually considered obese class 2 for people who know body mass charts index. I was actually obese class 1 starts at a body mass index of 30, and I had a 35.0, which put me in class 2. And being in class 2 medically in Canada, that would have qualified me for bariatric surgery. And so knowing that I would have qualified for government assisted or government sponsored bariatric surgery, that kind of spooked me a little bit too. So the nice thing though is that when I attacked my health, when I discovered that fasting and low carb, which eventually became keto, would treat my diabetes and cholesterol issues and everything else, the weight just melted off. It was almost effortless. I remember in 4 months, I lost 50 pounds a month. The rest of the weight came off more slowly, but, I basically ended at 70 pounds lost and have been, gaining and re-losing the same 10 pounds ever since. But basically you can say that it's permanent loss because it's been, 3.5 years since then. And, that I'm ecstatic about that because statistically 95% of people, or even more, when they lose weight, they don't keep it off. Statistically, it's a sad thing. And because keto or anything that you adopt has to be a long-term commitment in order for there to be a long-term result. And so since I've made this a long-term commitment, and to me, it's very easy. I don't struggle. I don't feel deprived or anything like that. It makes it very easy for me to keep a long-term commitment and keep my long-term results. Hopefully I didn't go off the rails too much, but I went from my family situation into, how it affects me today.
Not at all. Not at all. That was all. That's very. It's a very good, complete thought in that regard, and so thank you for that. So activity wise, you mentioned that you could see yourself running 5Ks and things like that well into your 80s and 90s and things like that. What are you doing now, activity wise, that you weren't doing before, whether that be fitness related or just fun?
Okay. Well, to me, it's pretty much related to fun. I don't have a strict fitness schedule, unlike a lot of the guys. And I would like to be there, but right now my schedule, I just don't have the priority right now. I know exercise is a huge plus, and I do enjoy the exercise I do get. Now, that being said, I do run once a week with my baby. I go on a trail and I jog, usually 4 or 5 kilometers. I usually do at least one 5K run a year, one 5K race, sometimes 2. Last year I did 2. I would have done 2 this year if it were not for COVID. And with my baby in the off-road stroller, it'll be his first time running a race. And so I've been kind of practicing as if I were training for my 5K race. And, I do that a little bit. I run no more than once or twice a week. Yeah. And I lift my baby. The cool thing about right now my baby weighs about 23 pounds without anything on. So when you have a diaper and everything else on, he weighs maybe 24, 20 pounds. And he loves to be bounced. He loves to be lifted. And so I lift 25 pounds several times, repetitively, several times a day. And imagine having a 25-pound kettlebell that cries and screams when you set it down. So you have to do another set right away to calm it down.
I love it.
And that's approximately, awesome. That's about what that is. And so my arms are in as good a shape as they were in my mid-20s, and I've never been in huge shape, but, in 20s, I wasn't a monster, but I was in the Army Reserve years ago, and that's about the shape I was in when I was in the Army Reserve. And, doing push-ups and stuff all the time. I don't do push-ups now, but I have the same arms as when I used to do push-ups, just lifting my baby several times a day repetitively. So, he doesn't cry and whine and so I have to do another set to calm him down. And so that's it. So my exercise is limited to raising my baby, bouncing my baby several times a day, and running once or twice a week. That's about it. And I have fun doing it because the cool thing about keto and weight loss is, you don't have to exercise to lose the weight. When you lose the weight, it makes you want to exercise more because, you have more energy and you feel like burning it off. It's easier to burn. And so that's it. I actually feel like moving around more than I used to 4 or 5 years ago.
That's awesome. Speaking of babies, how do you think that your current way of eating keto has helped you, navigating through fatherhood versus what it would have been like had you not stumbled upon this way of eating?
Oh, goodness. Several ways. I mean, for one, I'm not taking pills. I'm not obese. I'm not sickly like I used to be. So, I mean, before I lacked energy so much all the time. I mean, I still lack energy at the end of the day. I mean, right now I'm in the Eastern time zone, so it's almost 10 o'clock. And so around 10 o'clock, my hard drive shuts down. But, previously it was maybe 9 o'clock, my hard drive would shut down and I would turn green. And my friends would all kind of look at me around 9 o'clock and they would say, yep, he's turning green. So, and they would use it as kind of a clock as to know, okay, when is it time for Ben and his wife to go home? And so I no longer turn green, but I do get tired. So I do have more energy to raise my child, play with my child, and to enjoy him. And allows him to enjoy me more. I'm more focused than I used to be. Like I said, I'm pretty convinced that had I been a child, I would be easily diagnosed with ADHD. And I don't say that lightly. I don't say it to disrespect people who do have ADHD. And I'm not looking for a diagnosis because I don't want pills for it. I'm looking for other ways to remedy that. And I believe that keto is a great way. It helps reduce brain inflammation that affects brain cognitive issues. And so people with cognitive issues, such as difficulty concentrating for whatever reason, keto can actually help. And so with my way of eating, it helps me concentrate more on what he needs and concentrate more on, his activities and things like that without being so easily distracted. Of course, I'm still distracted, but quite as easily and, not as readily, can concentrate easily. Emotionally, I feel like I can handle myself better. There's just so many ways that your way of eating affects you, because your way of eating affects everything. It affects your mentality. It affects your energy, which affects everything else. It's just, your energy is just a root that affects your entire life. Everything branches off from that. So I don't know what else to say to describe it, but yeah, it's certainly affected the way I'm able to be a better father.
Yeah, that's understandable. And I mean, I could pretty much have the exact same sentiment across the board. And as you were saying, like once the energy comes, it's like you get this burst of energy that everyone gets, but then your work capacity significantly increases. So you end up pretty much back at, square one, but only you are a lot more efficient and accomplishing a lot more than you were previously. And that's what seems to get lost. Like the longer, your keto and stuff, you're like, wow, man, I'm back to being tired again. If you were to actually document the amount of things you're getting done compared to before, that you would realize, okay, it makes sense that I'm tired because I'm like a lot more productive, a lot more efficient, and even just, random physical activities around the house, you get a lot more of it done.
Yeah. And of course, I get a lot more of that done. I'm going to add again, just to rewind the cassette. I mentioned before that I was fearful for my future, for my health. That definitely affects the way I'm a father, because I don't have to worry about dying of a heart attack at the age of 50 in front of my kid. That definitely affects the way I would be a father. And one thing I did neglect to mention is that I am a lot more positive in general. As you know, it's a lot easier for me to be optimistic about circumstances. It's easier for me not to snap. If my baby does something stupid, it'll be easier for me not to snap at him. It'll be easier for me to just, take it lightly and just laugh with him. And that's going to be so key for his emotional development, not being afraid of a dad that's going to snap at any moment.
So talking about that's kind of an interesting topic there. Were you prone prior to keto and everything, having a little bit of an edge to your personality at all?
Sometimes, my coping mechanism throughout my entire history has just been to be very passive aggressive. To say yes, but not intend to do anything about it, which is horrible. But that's a coping mechanism that a lot of people use, especially introverts. And with my newfound mental clarity in the last few years, I've learned to analyze that and say, okay, maybe that's not the best way to approach it. Maybe there are more proactive ways to approach it. Perhaps I was passive aggressive because I feared losing my temper, but now there are other ways to avoid losing my temper without being passive aggressive. And I think that would more accurately describe where I'm.
So talking about going on to keto back in 2016 and, reversing course, so to speak, on diabetes and whatnot, are there times when you ever feel like you slip and, man, I'd love to have that piece of chocolate cake and it turns into the whole cake or the whole pie like you talked about earlier? Or, how do you, I guess, let me rephrase this, how do you maintain the enjoyment of where you're at now versus the instant gratification that a lot of people struggled with in the sugar highs and those kinds of things? Obviously you have a health situation, but
Right.
some people they don't care that cake means more than the magic pill that will fix it that they take before bed or whatever.
Okay, that's a good question, and some people have asked me that over time. And honestly, the question itself surprises me, because to me, it's not hard, and I have to wonder. I have to go back and and look at why people think it would be hard, and I have to analyze that, because it's not hard for me anymore. It hasn't been for years. But looking at it from a perspective of somebody who was back in that situation, I think in my case, the reason it is no longer hard and the shift that happened was purely educational, and I'll develop that thought. What happened is I was so scared and so motivated that I read hundreds of articles and I watched dozens of videos before going into intermittent fasting and low carb, which eventually became keto. And when I had that solid base of knowledge, became the foundation on which my emotions became based. Because a lot of psychologists will tell you, and this is probably a little bit controversial, not everybody agrees, but some people do. But a lot of people agree that all of our emotions are ultimately based on what we believe. What we believe is based on what we ultimately accept as being logically true. And so if you want to change your emotions, and you have to change your beliefs. If you want to change your beliefs, you have to change what you fundamentally believe is true. And in order to change what you fundamentally believe is true, you need to do a lot of learning. You need to do a lot of learning via reading videos and whatever. And that's what I did. So what I did, my learning contributed to a change of my core beliefs and what I accepted as true. And that in turn affects my emotions and my emotional responses and my triggers and my instincts. It all follows suit. And so when I see a chocolate cake that's not made with almond flour or something like that, even if it's made with almond flour, I'll confess that if it's made with keto ingredients, sometimes I'll have a very large slice and, maybe fast the next day. But if it's something I know does not have keto friendly ingredients and it's going to mess up my blood sugar, I know I'm not going to enjoy it. And it's more than mental, because if it's overly overly sugary, I literally do not enjoy it the way I used to, because my taste buds are so different. Just to give you a rough idea, fresh berries are amazing to me. They taste wonderful. A lot of people that are not keto have to add sugar. What I find pleasantly sweet, a lot of non-keto people and even some keto people will find tart or slightly bitter. And so what most people on the flip side find pleasantly sweet, I will find overwhelmingly, almost sickeningly sweet, to the point where I no longer enjoy it. And so will that piece of cake appeal to me? No, I know that I'm not going to enjoy it because it's probably going to be sickeningly sweet. It'll affect my blood sugar. I'll have to worry about symptoms of diabetes and medication, and I just don't want to go there. Do potato chips appeal to me? Not really. I was never really into potato chips to begin with. I ate them because they were there, It honestly doesn't appeal to me. I don't feel deprived. I mean, to me, I feel bad for people who deprive themselves of eating steak on a regular basis. I feel bad for people who don't eat ground beef on a regular basis, or they don't eat the skin on their chicken on a regular basis. I feel bad for people who don't butter their vegetables or salt their vegetables. I think that that just tastes so sad. Vegetables that are steamed with no butter or salt. I feel bad for those people. I think they're deprived, and so that's my mindset. And again, just to resume the question, to summarize the question, I truly believe that in my case, there was a paradigm shift that was directly related to my education. Read. I watched videos. I changed what I believed was true, which in turn affected everything else, my emotional responses, my instinctual responses, everything else followed suit. So there you go.
Absolutely.
Good stuff.
Yeah, our mindset on the food that we eat is so tied to everything. And it's not just the food that we eat. It goes well beyond that, but that's just, in this example, one of those things. I am one of those. I take in enough of the keto-friendly sweets that my it tastes sweet or is it too sweet thing is not actually over. It's still kind of out of whack. But so I eat those things enough that or drink those drinks enough, more accurately, that my is it sweet is still pretty high on the sweet meat. But that's okay. One of my favorite questions to ask our guests is, what surprised you along the way as you were kind of getting into keto, or as you were diving deep into keto? What's kind of been the thing that's caught you off guard?
Oh, goodness. I think the thing that caught me off guard the most was just how I would have to defend the way I eat. And I don't mean that negatively, but there are people who will notice the changes in your physical appearance. They'll get intrigued and they'll ask you what you did, and that will, cause them to ask 20 questions. And so it kind of became a surprise to me that health became a very common topic of discussion in my life because people would talk to me about it. They would ask me questions. They would say, I heard that that's not normal. I've heard it's not natural. I heard it's not healthy. What are your thoughts? And so, sometimes they mean well, and they're not trying to be mean. They're trying to be, thoughtful and, be a friend and ask you questions that, make you think about your health, as if I hadn't thought about it already. But I basically have to tell a lot of people that, don't worry about my health. I've done the research. It's very good for me. I get my blood tested every 3 months. My cholesterol levels are just fine. My blood glucose levels have never been better. So I'm doing fine. Thank you for your concern. And so I think that's been the biggest surprise to me, is just to what extent I have to justify my way of eating to other people, be it friends or family, and even complete strangers, because my friends and family talk to their friends, who talk to their friends, who then come to me, who I don't know, complete stranger, and they sometimes accost me and say, I heard this, 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 and this. I'm just like, well, send me an email. I'll send you more information if I don't have time to talk to them then and there. Sometimes I will have time to talk to them then and there. If they're open to a discussion, I'll be happy to sit and talk to them. If they're, it depends on their attitude. If they're really closed about it and they just want to say, you're doing the wrong thing and you need to quit, then I'll just say, thank you for your concern. Have a great day. But, if they just have questions and they're concerned and they're willing to listen and exchange, that's cool. Those are the greatest discussions of all time, because people who are willing to listen, they're open to learning, and learning new things, helps make the world a better place. Since we're getting toward the end, I have to talk about, you talked about sheephead, and I have to talk about my latest thing is chicken heart soup. That is the most amazing thing that you guys will ever taste. It's not gross. You take chicken hearts, you just throw them in the oven and let it slow cook. Put a little bit of water in there, salt and pepper. And the broth in that, I swear, is just amazing. It's better than any bone broth you've ever tasted. Chicken heart soup. You won't be sorry.
That actually sounds interesting. I've had chicken hearts before at one of the local Brazilian steakhouse restaurants, and while they were chewy, they actually did have a lot of flavor. And then I've also had beef heart made into meatloaf while I was at the Keto Savage Complex a while back. So heart is one of those I kind of want to do more with, but you kind of have to do it just so.
Yeah, and chicken heart soup is hard not to get right. It's hard to get wrong. You just basically, what I do is I put it in the oven, put some water in there, salt and pepper. I cover it with aluminum foil so it doesn't all boil out, because otherwise you just get dry chicken hearts at the end. And I let it slow cook for several hours, 6 to 8 hours, just so that it saps out all the juices from the heart. And the hearts end up nice and tender, and you end up with this really rich broth. That's amazing.
That actually does sound really good when you describe it that way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah,
So
I
highly recommend it to any of our listeners.
You might have to pour that in a glass for me and not tell me what it is first. I'll be honest with you. Yeah, now that I know about the Beef Fizz, I will definitely not be reaching for that when I come to Ben's house the first time. Hey, Jim, would you like a cocktail? Oh,
It's like a chicken.
This is something that,
cocktail?
yeah, you don't mix this one with ginger ale, no.
Woo. Any thoughts, Ben, about tips for beginners and whatnot? Because we kind of talked about the experience side of things, but people who are listening and wanting to jump on the keto bandwagon or whatever, what are some things that you would tell them to get started in?
Okay, well, basically, I'm going to sound like a broken record, and that kind of dates me as someone who's 40 or older, because I don't know if people under 40 know what a broken record is. But just to define myself to people under 40 who don't know what a broken record is, back when record players were a thing, if there was a scratch in your record, your music would just repeat the same 2-second sequence over and over again, and you had to basically physically move the needle of the record past that scratch so that you could continue with the song. So, sounding like my broken record, I would basically advise anybody and everybody to research, study, read, watch videos, go to Diet Doctor. The Keto Man's Club is an excellent resource. And of course, I'm going to plug you guys. KetoCon 2020 is an excellent resource. Watch the videos, read blogs. And what that does is it solidifies your base of knowledge. And a solid base of knowledge is going to lead to a solid base of decisions. And a solid base of decisions is going to lead to solid results. So when you have that solid base of knowledge, your belief structure changes. When you look at a piece of cake and you believe in your heart of hearts that cake is not your friend, that cake is, not going to be pleasant, it's not going to be a pleasant consequence. And you believe in your heart of hearts that it's best to avoid that, then your emotions are going to follow suit, your instincts are going to follow suit. You're just going to instinctively look away, and you're going to find something else that's going to give you that gratification that you're looking for. And so research, read. It might sound boring, but it is so extremely important. So that's really all there is to it. To me, it sounds very basic, but there you go. As far as resources I would recommend reading, again, Keto Man's Club, anything by Keto Evangelist. They have a great blog. I blogged a couple times a few years ago. The Keto Evangelist Kitchen has excellent recipes. Diet Doctor has some amazing resources. There's just so much out there. Verta Health, if you're diabetic, has amazing resources as far as tools and blogs to help you if you're diabetic and you wish to become asymptomatic and med-free, as I am. That's a great resource. And there's so many else out there. Those are my recommendations. So there you go. Hopefully that answers that question. Is there anything else?
No, those are all great.
Yeah. Fantastic. Me and Chris were going to say the exact same thing at the exact same time. Just throw one last one in there for you. The importance of salt and electrolytes.
Oh, goodness. Importance of salt and electrolytes. When you're beginning, salt and electrolytes is important. Please don't neglect it. Start with, look at Keto Evangelist, look at the Keto Man's group for recommendations. I don't know the recommendations by heart because I know what works for my body, and what works for my body doesn't work for everyone else. And so what works for my body is I just salt my food generously. And when I didn't salt my food, what would happen is I would get cramps. I got horrible cramps in my thighs when I started keto. And when I started salting my food, those cramps disappeared. And I don't supplement magnesium because I eat dark chocolate. That's my magnesium. I don't supplement potassium just for the reason that, for me personally, I have high serum potassium to begin with. Every time I get my blood tested, they tell me I have high potassium. That's always been the case, and so I don't supplement because I personally don't need to. And I realize that not everybody has high serum potassium as I do, so most people have to supplement potassium. I don't.
Yeah,
I know it's a very vague answer, but basically, if you're starting, look at the recommendations that are general and then tweak them to suit whatever fits your body.
Absolutely.
I've
Yeah,
not
that's
heard about
solid
the
advice.
chocolate. The chocolate thing I had not heard about.
Yeah, chocolate is a great source of magnesium. Dark chocolate, I usually prefer 85% or more. And it is a really great source of magnesium, as well as there are other things like, there's spinach, there's no salt, of course, that some people use. It's a brand. When I say no salt, that's a brand. And so many other things you can. I'm sorry, no salt. That's potassium. I apologize.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I'm getting my electrolytes mixed up because I rarely, I apologize because I rarely talk about electrolytes because to me, I just use what works for me, and what works for me for magnesium. Sometimes I'll use magnesium citrate powder, but more often than not, I'll just take some dark chocolate. That's my magnesium for the day.
Sounds like a much better way to go about it.
Yeah.
I supplement a highly bioavailable version of magnesium. I forget what the exact formulation on it is, but rather it doesn't give me any gastric side effects, but it's supposed to absorb better and things like that. And so I've switched to that, but the dark chocolate sounds like a tastier option.
Yeah, you just have to look out for, added sugars and whatnot that might take away from the benefits. But if you're with 85% or higher, the amount of sugar shouldn't trigger any binging or anything negative. It's just that when it gets under 70% or 60%, all the benefits of all the antioxidant benefits of the magnesium and everything get counterbalanced by the negatives of, rich sugars and what. So I try to stick to 80% and higher just to keep the benefits of magnesium and antioxidant properties.
Fantastic, man. Fantastic. All good stuff. We're going to try not to keep you too long. I know it's getting late over there, and you're not turning green, but you might be getting tired.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's about it. It's a little bit past 10 my time. I still have some energy, but that's okay. I'm usually more of a morning person, but it's all good. It's for a great cause.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we want to respect the time, and you've done an awesome job of sharing your story and giving some excellent tips and direction. I wholeheartedly agree with you. Just circling back with your encouragement for doing research and things like that. The thing that helped me get on keto was very much like you. I heard someone who I knew to be very analytical and very specific about what they do. They're a technological like security scientist, but like this guy runs numbers. He's not going to go into anything half cocked. And he shared over like a 3-hour, 2-part podcast his experience of going into paleo and then eventually keto. And it was just enough for me to go, okay, this all makes sense to me. And it was enough to scratch that little bit of an itch in my head. And I started digging into Diet Doctor and started digging into all these things. And Fathead, the movie, found that. And that gave a lot of the both graphical and just logical explanation of how to get started. And that once I did that research, I was convinced this is exactly the situation of why I am the weight that I am and why I'm in the health situation that I am. And that tells me that this diet, this way of life is what I'm going to start as my new life. And looking back, it's done its task like it has for you. And I'm hoping that others will hear this, they'll do their own research, and they will have the same experience. And so that would be great. Thank you so much for coming on. How can people connect with you online?
Oh, goodness. That's a big question. First of all, thank you for the invitation. If people want to connect with me online, probably the best way to go about it would be to reach me on Facebook. I have a Facebook blog page, simply called Ben Low Carb. That's BenLowCarb, Ben Low Carb. They can contact me on that page via Messenger or what. Yeah, that should do it.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, our social information for everything podcasts and Keto Man's Club is on our website, theketomansclub.com. If you found value in today's podcast and feel like someone else in your life is going to potentially find value in it as well, share it with them. Let them see this episode or any of the episodes. If you want to help spread the word, you can also leave a rating or a comment on Apple Podcast and share what your experience has been with our podcast as well. Any contributions to that will definitely help the algorithm know who to put this in front of, and we're all about seeing lives changed and seeing people take control of their own lives and change it for the better. So that's that. For Jim, Alberto, and myself, good night, and until next week, make sure to eat meat, lift heavy, sleep, and repeat. Thank you for joining us for the Keto Man's Club podcast. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. You can find the podcast on all podcast platforms. Would you help spread the word by sharing this episode with a friend or family member that you think might find value in it? You can also help spread the word by leaving a comment or rating on Apple Podcasts. If you would like to connect with us, you can do so a number of ways. First, you can visit our website for all of our social media links, show links, Facebook group, and pages. The website is theketomansclub.com. You can also connect with us on Instagram by following @Keto Man's Club Podcast. You can email us at ketomansclubpodcast@gmail.com. And lastly, you can leave us a voicemail at 512-518-6161. Thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to hanging out with you again next week.